Welcome to episode 31 of the Landlady Boss podcast. I'm here with my sister and co-host Rachel. We're finally back together. How are you doing, Rachel?
Great. So good to see you.
Good. I'm sure you had a wonderful time in Vienna. Last podcast, I was alone because you were enjoying Vienna and we were not sad for you.
No, no, you shouldn't be
No.
because I had a wonderful time.
What was your top highlight? Just give us one little nugget.
Hmm. Let's see. I think New Year's Eve, we were in the square and we were at St. Stephen's Cathedral, just in that square, and there were thousands of people. And we had live music, and it was the orchestra playing the Blue Danube by Strauss, and everybody was waltzing in
Oh.
the square. Yeah, it was so
Oh,
fun.
did you feel like you were in a movie like those old movies with okay, now I'm blanking out on her name. Audrey
Yeah.
Hepburn. That's what I picture when I hear
Yes.
that song. So how
It was
magical. Sounds amazing.
It was amazing. We watched two cats in exchange for living at a person's apartment for 2 weeks, and it was a really
Hmm.
great exchange. It was really nice. Yeah.
That's what I love. You're like, maybe I'll find a new way, a creative way to make it to Vienna if I, don't want to pay for it. That's amazing. So you cat sat, is that a word?
Cat.
Cat sat.
It's a cat sat.
Because you go on different sites that do pet sitting, right? And you found someone that was looking for a pet sitter during the holidays, and they just happen to live in Vienna. So it's amazing. There's so many creative ways to travel without having to blow the bank. And I think you are so
Totally.
creative for doing it this way.
Thank you. And yeah, Vienna gets really expensive around the holidays because they have all the Christmas markets, and we went
Oh, I
ice
bet.
skating. I mean, we pretty much did the Hallmark movie where walking around and hot chocolate, and it was so fun. Yeah.
That sounds wonderful. How exciting. Well, I am busily packing for Nicaragua today. I have my own little adventure coming. And on the social media, if you follow us, I put a question out there that a lot of people were looking and wondering and curious about. And I said, what packing things do you think I take to Nicaragua? And this is kind of an interesting list. I'm not going to go all the way in it, but I did say on Instagram that I would answer on the podcast. And I'm sure people were thinking the usual, like summer clothing and sandals and sunscreen and all these kind of things, right? Some of the things that you might not think of that I've started taking just out of precaution or necessity. I take chocolate chips for sure because that's a necessity, I think, and it is so hard to find chocolate chips in Latin countries in my experience. It's not something that they commonly use, but especially traveling with kids and, they just want a warm chocolate chip cookie, it makes things a lot better sometimes in my experience. So chocolate chips, peanut butter. Butter is not easy to find. And if you like it, it is something you don't want to be without. So, and that's an easy, I have found if I travel with peanut butter, if, maybe people get tired of the new different food or something's too spicy or whatever, you can always, make a peanut butter sandwich. You can always find bread wherever you're traveling. So peanut butter is a staple I take with me. Some people might think that's weird. Kitchen knives. Have you ever stayed in Airbnbs? They're usually awful, so I usually take a couple good knives with me. Obviously, my checked luggage because, we're not going to try to carry those on. Be a short trip. Rachel, can you think of anything interesting you take when you're traveling that just is kind of different?
Take my light Turkish towel.
Oh, what's a Turkish towel?
It's I actually should grab it and show you. It's a big beach towel, but it's made out of really light cotton. That's just kind of a
Oh,
linen-y cotton, and it
mm-hmm.
dries quickly and it packs small, but it's lovely. I always take a towel.
Nice. I have traveled with some of those kind of wick away towels where they scrunch down to nothing, but then you can just
Mhm,
whip it out and they dry so fast. So that's a good one. I take
mhm,
Ziploc bags. That is like a
mhm.
lifesaver to me and so hard to find,
Yeah.
but you can store anything in them or leftovers or just extra things. It's to keep them away from ants or rodents or things that are a lot more common in hot climates and different countries. A carrot peeler, those are like impossible to find. In
Yes.
Nicaragua, they use knives and they just like, hack at the carrots and potatoes, which they do it amazingly, but I am not amazing like that. So a carrot peeler saves the day when I am trying to cook in a different country. And this is the worst one, lice shampoo. That is a preventative thing that I have learned to take because when there's
No.
a lice breakout, which sometimes happens, you think you can find shampoo at the local pharmacy? No, it's all gone. So I have a daughter with long hair and she goes to school there. So we take lice shampoo and I take the rosemary spray, that preventative lice stuff. Oh, I spray every day before school, after, and I braid and everything. So we don't usually have an issue with it, but we have before. So I've learned to take that with me.
Yeah, those are all things I take. Those are important ones. I think kitchen stuff is just the things that you really, really like. If you're going to a country that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have cups and teaspoons, I'll take a set of cups and
Those are
teaspoons
big.
and tablespoons.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
often don't have them in foreign countries, so that's
Yeah.
helpful to have measuring things when you're trying to cook there. I take a yoga mat just because it's handy to have like something to do exercises on. So usually it's like tile floor or like not soft flooring, so you can kind of have that to work out or do whatever you want in the house.
That's
So
true.
oh, so many different things, but those are some of my quick little ones. Of course, bug spray and
Hmm.
sunscreen, which are hard to buy there, which is bizarre because
Yeah.
there's a lot of sun and a lot of bugs, but I guess people don't buy them. I don't know. So, anyways, those are the answers. If you were curious, those are some of the things I am packing busily today, but we found a window of time to do the podcast because we want to make sure that we get this information out to you as you're starting the year out. We're talking about goal setting. I know that's what a lot of people are talking about. It's on everyone's mind, but it's an important thing because what happens is if you don't set the goals, then the year happens and you look back and you go, well, it would have been nice if, but without deliberate actions, things don't happen or growth doesn't happen, change doesn't happen. So you want to be very proactive in your strategies as a real estate investor. Most of the time, in my experience, people don't just knock on your door and say, hey, I've got this great property. Do you want to come see it? Usually you have to take some action, in my experience. Now, if that happens to you, fantastic. And I will say, as you do get more and more into real estate investing, you do make contacts, and sometimes people do reach out to you. I had just last Friday someone text me and say, we have 5 properties coming on the market. If you would be interested in touring them, then we are looking for investors that want to renovate them and sell them. Oh, okay. That was kind of fun. So I did go Saturday and I walked through all the properties and kind of looked at what they needed, and I'm compiling a list.
I got a nice email. It was somebody emailing asking if I have any properties for rent because their partner used to work with me and they were told only rent from Rachel. And I thought that was a pretty nice little
Oh
compliment.
my gosh, that's so
Yeah.
nice. I love it when that
Yeah.
happens. Like, we heard great things, or we've been waiting for one of your properties to come up, and we
Yeah.
want this one. I love that. I think we start with goals, talking about SMART goals and what SMART goals, because not all goals are created equally. So SMART goals are ones that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So they have an expiration date on them, like a time stamp, so that there's some way to measure them. So as we're looking at goals this year, it's going to be really important that you choose goals that you can measure them and that they're specific. It's not just say, I want to make more money this year. That's not very specific and not very measurable. So you're going to want to take some specific goals that you can look at and say, what actions do I have to take to get there? Rachel, do you have any examples for us?
Yeah. I think, for instance, I've been thinking about my goals for this next year, and I would like to have 100 units. I think 100 units of rentals is about enough to have a very small team, to have maybe a manager that they call. You're not keeping the maintenance crew too busy, but enough that they still will answer your calls if you don't have them as your employees. So I think that's my goal, is to get 25 more units this year and have 100.
That is an awesome goal. I love that. It's specific, it's measurable. You'll know at the end of the year if you have 100 units or not. Now, I'm sure there are some things that you're mapping out that you can do to reach that. It's not just going to happen, but
Right.
I think that's a fantastic goal. And I did find, yeah, I think when I hit 75 or managing, we brought on a almost full-time handyman. He is as busy as he wants to be. And so it
Yeah.
was great to get to that number so that we could justify having, more full-time staff. So there, it is true. If you have one or two, it doesn't justify having,
Yeah.
a full-time staff with you.
Right. And at 70, I'm at this problematic place where I need somebody maybe working about 20 to 30 hours a week. And so I'm not full time, but it's also harder for like a mom to maybe work as many hours as I want. So I'm having trouble with finding the right match. So if I have more, then I'll have the revenue to make them able to make enough that, it's worth their while to work the hours and hire somebody like
Right.
that. Yeah. hmm So,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Some other examples, maybe people want to increase their occupancy rate
hmm
or, maybe say, I want to add one new property to my portfolio this year.
Yeah.
And so then some actionable steps that you could take would be, I'm going to look every day for a certain amount of time on the MLS or on listings on other sites, but look at listings to see what I can find. I am going to call on 5 properties a week. I'm going to tour 10 properties a month, or, whatever these, do you
Right.
see how they're actionable, very specific? You lay them out, and these steps will lead to you having one more property or maybe even more by the end of the year. So
Right.
very actionable steps that you can do. I know one of my goals is to complete this vacation rental that I'm working on in Nicaragua. As I mentioned on the last podcast episode, I am headed to Nicaragua, but it's not for just play. It is going to be overseeing this massive construction reno project that I bought a fixer-upper in Nicaragua last summer. And my husband was very supportive of it, which is wonderful. He's a wonderful guy. Not a lot of people probably would have been, but I said, this has so much potential. This is an amazing place and location. We just, have to fix up this really old shell of a house. So we are in the middle of that. So I'm going down and overseeing that. But one of my goals is to finish this rental property in 2025 and get it listed and furnished and photographed and everything like that. So that's going to be very specific, very measurable, very relevant, and definitely have an expiration date. So that's one of
hmm
mine. We'll see what
That's
happens.
good.
Another goal I have is we have a cabin on our property that is about 100 years old, and I have wanted to renovate it and restore it and make it so it could be usable by guests or family or friends. And so that is underway also. We have started that project. So that's another goal that I have this year
Mm.
to complete. So it's already going to be a busy year, and I haven't even gotten into multifamilies or rental properties outside of my normal portfolio. So
Right.
it could be busy,
Definitely busy. Always busy.
but that's how it goes. I mean, I think if you shoot for the moon, if you don't make it to the moon, but you're halfway there, it's still better than staying on ground. So, you have to set your sights really high. And I think 2025 is the year to do that. If you have been
Yeah.
thinking about growing, thinking about building out your rental portfolio, or maybe you have some, but you want to expand it, or you want to get into different kinds of rental properties. There's just so many ways you can go, but
hmm
really saying, okay, this year I'm going to take deliberate actions to make it there is going to be so important for your success. And the ways to do that, as we said, breaking down those goals into manageable tasks. So don't say this is so overwhelming. Don't give yourself this huge goal and say, I'm going to have 10 properties by the end of the year. Well, that could be really overwhelming. But as I said before, if you break it down into those manageable steps, and I'm going to be looking at the properties. Okay, looking at the properties takes no
Yeah.
money or is very low stress, right? Looking at them, maybe talking to some people, maybe doing some research on locations that you want to buy in, maybe talking to brokers to line up money for these properties so that when you do find the right ones, you have the money lined up. All these things are steps that you can take to make these goals more manageable. So don't stress yourself out. Don't do huge goals and then be like, there's no way I can accomplish that. Start with small, manageable steps and break it down into daily plans and then weekly and then monthly. So, and then it will be yearly. I think most people, they underestimate what they can do in 5 years, but overestimate what they can do in a year. It's true. I think too often we sell ourselves short by saying we can't accomplish something, but we don't just break it down into more actionable steps that make it more possible. Instead, we just say, I'm not even going to try. So I definitely don't want us to fall into that category. Use tools and systems that are available to you, whether that is, signing up for lists that send you the properties available, or automating some of these systems so that you can, driving around, there's so many apps and tools that you can use to look up addresses that can give you the information on them right away. Or you don't have to do all of these things manually or on your own. And definitely networking, reaching out to realtors or going to meetups or real estate investing groups. All of these things are going to be so helpful for you to meet people in the same circles. And I know you hear that. And I remember when I got started hearing that and being like, but I don't know anyone that's doing this. And I was on a treadmill listening to a podcast and they're like, network. And I'm like, who am I going to do that with? The parents at my kids' school? Like who am I going to network with? But it was amazing how when I started talking to people that I knew about what I was wanting to do, even some of these parents at my kids' school, they had suggestions about, you really should reach out to so and so because they specialize in this. Or this person I know, they bought a property through this realtor who does rental property. So, I mean, you'll be amazed at how many people just in your immediate circle that are currently connected some way with helping you accomplish your goals. But you do have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to talk to people. You're going to have to network and just get
Yes.
out there because it's not going to happen to you.
Right. And I think some of the other goals around that you can quantify would be if you are trying to make sure your maintenance costs were brought down. Like you could be looking at preventative measures you can take to bring those costs down.
Mm-hmm.
Some other goals that I think are measurable would be like you talked about adding properties, but what about actually going through all your properties? And that's something that you can measure, look at the income expenses and figure out if they were, performing the way you want them to be or something like that. So there's lots of these professional goals. Mm-hmm.
So we had talked about breaking it down into different categories. And so one area that we had talked about is tenant related goals. And a tenant related goal that I have is to get more tenants trained on our new maintenance app that we have started using, MaintainX. I've mentioned it before. It's been really great for streamlining our maintenance requests. I haven't really liked the maintenance portals that I've had through the tenant softwares that I've been using. So I have outsourced to MaintainX, and it's a separate app, but I can send a QR code and the tenants can click on that and then they can upload pictures and send it there. And I can categorize everything by properties and then send it on to technicians and then they can go fix it and click complete it. I mean, so I know that there are some tenant softwares that do this, but I hadn't found one that had all the other features I wanted to. So as I brought this new maintenance software on board, I want to make sure all the tenants are trained on it, so that will help streamline things for this year. And then I want to reassess my portfolio. I'm in a position where I brought on a lot of apartments last year in 2024. It was a big growth year for me. I kind of expanded rapidly, and so there's been a lot of turnover of tenants and turnover of apartments and redoing things and fixing things, so kind of heavy on that end. And so this year, 2025, I'm not so much looking at growing necessarily, which is shocking, but I'm looking at streamlining the portfolio I have and being very deliberate in my actions with it and analyzing them and kind of thinning the herd, ones that are not performing well, analyzing why, and if they're not good rental properties, either selling them or changing the category of rental that it is. If it's a single family and it's just not working well, okay, well, could it be a short-term rental? Is it in a good location, a good use for that? Or, finding different strategies in my own portfolio to make it overall perform better. That's my goal for 2025.
That's really good. And I think most of us just think more, acquire more, build a larger portfolio, because we think that really it's about the dollars attached to like how much property we own. Like that's that's what accumulating wealth would look like. And actually being smart about what you do own, and if it's not performing, not having it continue to be in your portfolio, because there are ones that are more expensive to run and maintain, and there are ones that just are not that expensive and rent higher. So looking at that, I think, is how you manage properly your portfolio and not just acquire to acquire.
Yeah, I think people so much get stuck on, I need 1,000 units or I want hundreds of units. And I mean, that is a certain strategy, but I really am of the mindset of quality over quantity and having it laid out, okay, how much do you really need to bring in every month? What is your goal? Have that
Mhm.
monetary goal, which I had very set in my mind, what I wanted to accomplish for me to have freedom in my mind.
Right,
So I feel like once you accomplish that,
right. No, that makes
when once
sense.
you've won the game, do you keep playing it? Not that I'm saying I've won the game, but I'm just saying like then you kind of change strategies for the game. Like, have I gotten to a point where I feel comfortable with the amount of time that I put into it? I have a good team. I have a lot of freedom and flexibility. Great. I don't want to rock that boat. So I want to continue to be strategic in how I do that portfolio, but not necessarily take on projects or take on more that might limit my time and freedom so that I can go to Nicaragua and travel and go do things. And that leads me to my personal goal that I have this year that is super, super exciting. For years, I have wanted to travel during the school year with my kids and take them out of school and do online and travel around the world. And
Mm.
it was one of the reasons that I got into real estate investing, rental properties, because I really felt like that that cash flow would be a fantastic match for me being able to travel. And ideally, I wanted my husband to be able to come with me and do it, which he could. We could do that, but he is having goals of his own in his profession, and that's fine. And so he's going to visit us when he can. But this fall, I am happy to say I will be down to 2 children and I'm going to be pulling them out and going online. Now, after COVID, there's just so many options that we can do this, and we're going to be traveling the world. So it's just going to be my 2 teenagers, 15 and 13-year-olds, and we're going to be going. We're going to be starting in the US and going out west and traveling around there and seeing family, and then hopefully going to Bulgaria at some point, Rachel, and visiting Rachel in
Yes,
Bulgaria. That will be so fun. And we have a sister in
yes.
Jerusalem. We hope to visit there. So, I mean, just without, any strict schedule, but being able to travel. I've always wanted them to see the world, and I feel like you learn so much when you are able to do that. So this is possible through managing rental properties, and I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to do it. But that is a personal goal that I've had, and I'm so excited 2025 is the year to do it. So that's a yay for me.
That's a huge yay. I love that. And I think that the biggest opportunity for children to learn is to actually see the pyramids or experience, the ruins in Greece. And I mean, just as they're walking through them, they're like they are understanding the cultures, and they understand so much more because it's so visual, and they're eating the foods, and they're hearing languages, and seeing the sights. And I think it's, I mean, you get tired of it, definitely, but I would say that your kids become like just so much more interested in history and geography by going through the world that way.
Oh yeah, yeah, and art and cultures and food. I mean, there's just
Yeah,
something about seeing it firsthand. So
it's
I'm so
amazing.
grateful that I can do that. And it may be a total flop and we hate it and we come home by Christmas. Who knows? And I will be visiting home on and off too. So I mean, there's no set like have to way to do it,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's just
just enjoy
something
it.
I've wanted to try. So that's the plan.
Well,
But
I'm angling for a visit, definitely. That's on my goal, is to get you to visit me.
yes, then we could do a podcast from Bulgaria. We wanted to do that.
Yes, yes. Okay, so a lot of times I think a little people, as you hit certain age, you decided that you've already done your New Year's resolutions for so many years in a row that you're just going to skip that this year. And I think if you look back on why they didn't work in the past, it could be that you did do something that was just huge and you didn't break it up into steps, you didn't figure out a way to get there. Like you could, for instance, my personal goal would be to learn Bulgarian this next year. So as is with
Nice.
most languages, you can't just wake up one day and speak, right? I mean, it actually does take a lot of small steps. And I think my first one is that I have a tutor on Thursdays. So I've been doing that, but my next part of the goal is to actually do some of the readings and studying between the tutor
Oh,
sessions because
what a good idea, Rachel.
because I
Gonna
get so
study?
busy. And suddenly it's the lesson and we're talking and I realize I actually haven't done much since the last time we had talked. So I need to do my studying and commit to spending my half hour every day working on the language in order to speak it. But then the next part of it that I'm breaking it up into pieces is that you can learn so much and only go so far in books and reading, and you actually have to go out in the community and start speaking in order to speak. And so I need to get brave that way.
That is true. That is the way to
Yeah,
learn. You have to get out there. And same with real estate investing. You have to
yeah,
get out there. You have to hustle. You have to knock doors.
yeah.
You have to talk to people. You have to look at things. I mean, it takes some energy
It
and
does.
time. So you have to really, I
Yes.
think, analyze that why. Why do you want to do that? Why? It has to be a driving force. And accountability is going to be huge. That's my next point
Hmm.
is if you've written down these goals, steps that you can do, some action steps, but if you write these down, but then you never share them with anyone or you never tell anyone about them, it's a lot harder to succeed because you need an accountability partner. So whether that is a partner, spouse, friend, a professional contact, someone that you can say, hey, keep me accountable, check in with me, make sure that I'm doing this, or will you call me and show me a house every week? Something. Make it easy for you to be successful with your goals
Hmm.
and have that accountability because it's going to be way easier than just making the goals and not telling anyone about them. So I would definitely encourage you to do that.
True. Definitely. And adapt. Things happen.
Yes.
Things happen and you just forgive yourself and yep.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's why it is another really important point I want to make is, and we want to do a whole podcast on this, but building out an emergency fund, that is going to be very critical. And have a backup, have a buffer, have a plan. Don't stretch yourself too thin where you don't have resources in case emergencies happen, because that
Hmm.
that's going to help you if things get a little tricky, and you're going to be able to, I feel like, be a little bit more brave in your goals and a little more out of your comfort zone if you do have kind of that emergency fund. So maybe that's your goal for this year. Build up an emergency fund, pay down debt, do these things to help you have kind of that buffer so that
Hmm.
you're able to go out of your comfort zone and accomplish some of these different goals that are so much easier when you have a buffer.
Right. Right. It's so true. And I think it's super important to review last year. And that's how you come
Mm-hmm.
up with your goals. You can look at did you overspend on maintenance last year? Did you do you have too much staff for what they're doing, or do you have too little? Are your properties not being maintained in the best way? Do you have like accounts where you can get things on wholesale or and we talked about the emergency fund so that you're not afraid to call that plumber in, I mean, I think these
Mm-hmm.
are these are good things to look at. What were your stress points for last year? What caused you to feel anxious, and how can this next year be better? And I think a lot of that is having better budgets for each property, setting it in advance so is that in your budget to buy a new lawnmower, or is that in your budget to re-roof this year?
Mm-hmm.
These are the kind of questions you can ask yourself if you have a budget set up. Yeah.
Yeah, and prioritizing those maintenance things. This is a great time to plan out what maintenance things or CapEx things you want to do for whatever properties this year so that it's a plan. Are you replacing a roof? Are you redoing the furnace? Are you putting gutters on? Are you redoing the kitchen? Or, we have a tenant moving out this week, and we know, we're going in, we're going to be redoing the kitchen and the flooring and painting and, looking at your properties and kind of analyzing, which people are possibly going to be leaving and having kind of a loose plan. Okay, in June we're doing this, and then being able to budget and plan for those expenses so it's not all of a sudden or,
Right.
all at once in a big expense and you're just panicking. So having a
Right.
plan, yes, that's what we're getting at. Plan out what you want your year to look like and then be flexible and understand that things happen and give yourself grace and let yourself work hard, but also realize that if it doesn't happen, try better
Hmm.
next time. But being
And
flexible
that's
with yourself.
And that's the financial plan. I think the next thing that you want to evaluate is looking back last year. How were your relationships with your tenants? How fast was your response time? Did you pay your vendors quickly? Can you pay them more quickly so that they'd appreciate doing business with you? What other strong professional relationships can you strengthen so that you're able to have the people on call that you need to have on call? And then are you treating your staff or yourself well? Are you able to are people feeling appreciated that you work with? These are all relationship reviews that you could do on your business relationships and see if there's ways that they can improve for next year.
Yeah, that's a fantastic category to look at and say, because we've looked at financial and we look at personal development and we look at, okay, relationship. I think people don't obviously think of that. That's not a one that you're just like, oh,
Yeah,
yeah, how are my relationships with others? But I think that's a great idea because the relationships you have with your tenants or your team or your networks are going to determine the quality of 2025 that you have because it
right.
all does come down to relationships. And as we're talking about how to improve those relationships or improve your business or improve your finances, I think so much of it comes down to education, personal growth. We talked about maybe accountability partners, but whatever you need to grow in your business, it's going to come through if you are growing and educating yourself. And so are you going to get a mentor maybe this year? That's possible. Maybe getting some courses. If you're like, I want to manage my properties better, I want to streamline them, maybe getting some education. We are offering some courses. We just released our third course, which is so exciting, and it walks you through step by step how to manage your properties, how to screen your tenants, how to start your management business. I mean, all these things that are the nitty gritty that we had to learn the hard way that maybe you don't know or you're unsure or you just want to streamline the systems that you already have. Get some training. You don't have to do ours, but we have tried to put everything that we know into it. But that is going to help your business by improving, by training
Definitely.
yourself, getting that education. Because if you're just going to do it how you've been doing it, then it's going to get the same result. So if you really want to improve for 2025, maybe shake it up a little bit, get those tools sharpened so that you can have an even better 2025 with your business.
Excellent. Couldn't have said it better myself. Good job, Marie. That's exactly what we should all do.
Thank you. We do have some exciting things coming in 2025 with Landlady Boss. I mentioned it a little bit on the last podcast, but we're putting together a bundle that has, the documents, everything that you need to operate as a landlady boss. It's property management with the documents, everything that you're going to checklist, applications, a lease, all these things. And we're putting all the documents together because I think that's one of the main concerns people have is what about the documents? What am I going to do? What do I do for a lease? I don't have this and I don't want to show up and not have the right papers and I don't want to get sued or do something illegally. So having those documents are going to be so helpful. And then of course we have our no rent loss tenant turnover 24-hour signature system course, which is fantastic because if you find that your tenant turnover windows are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and you're losing money and you're now 2 or 3 weeks to turn over a tenant, you really need to tighten that up to save yourself money and to increase tenant satisfaction. So we have a great mini course about that that's just going to have a lot of tips and things maybe you hadn't thought of to really streamline your process with that. And then the other courses that I talked about that go through the nitty gritty of managing your property. So check that out at landladyboss.com. and maybe pick and choose, maybe some area of your business that you feel like could really do with a little pep, a little improvement, and start small and work from there. But there are resources out there to help you, and I hope that 2025 is a wonderful year for you and your business, and that you're able to grow and streamline and improve tenant relationships and do all those things that will make you a better landlady boss.
And we're here for you. Definitely.
And we're here for you.
Yes.
So if you have any topics that you'd like to hear about, questions, please feel free to email us at landladybosses@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Also, if you're enjoying this podcast, we do it for you. We want to help other landladies to hopefully miss some of the headache and mistakes and things that we had to do. So share it. If you have friends that are in real estate investing or rental properties or want to be, feel free to share it with them and subscribe. And please leave a 5-star review. Also, if you're on YouTube, or if you didn't realize, we do have our podcast on YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube, and we actually have a lot of people that seem to love to watch it on YouTube, but maybe it's just more interesting if you can see our faces, but then you can tell who is whom. So sometimes the voices, you don't know who's talking, so
Yeah.
it's fun to watch it on YouTube. So check us out on YouTube, and remember, no one can manage your properties as well as you.